everybody, I'm Dennis Daly. I spent 20 years with United Press International, most of it with the old UPI Radio Network. And my favorite assignment was going on the road producing and hosting American Montage. It was an hour-long weekly program. Now here's an edited version of one of those shows. Hi, and thanks again, everybody, and this week a genuine treat. We sit down and talk to one of the great pioneers of television, Mr. Sid Caesar. Sid rocketed to television fame back in the 50s by doing that live weekly show with Imogene Coca and a cast of crazies called Your Show of Shows. But if you're tempted to think that Sid Caesar was an overnight success, like most overnight successes, he had worked hard for years to be discovered. He was a big hit during the war doing military shows that traveled the country. And then he got his chance at Broadway.
And I went into a show called Make My Manhattan, which was a Broadway show where I won the Donaldson Award for the best performance of a newcomer.
Kind of Rookie of the Year in a way.
That's right, yeah. The Donaldson Award is the Rookie of the Year. And from there I went right into television. So it was kind of a lightning steps, 1, 2, 3. And when television in those days was, it went to Chicago, that's all. The coaxial cable just went to Chicago. And I said, well, it's a coming business, we'll see what'll happen. So we did a show. And I remember Pat Weaver, who was then vice president in charge of television, because the president was radio. And I remember the entire show, it was an hour show, it was called the Admiral Broadway Review. And that entire show, including the entire cast, including the orchestra, the costumes, scenery, for an hour broadcast time with everything above the line, below the line, $19,000 a week.
Couldn't pay a grip in some places now for that much money. You were talking about the almost shoestring way in which television was put together. The thing that I, as a person who studied film and had what we call radio TV in college, is still a gray area for me, is that by the time I really started watching television, it was a little slicker than it was early on. I'm just wondering how much of a fly by the seat of your pants operation it really was. There had to be some organization, but was it really that much of a catharsis trying to get each show together to get it to come out? No teleprompters, none of the slick graphics we have today?
No, it was very simple. Well, you did. It was much simpler than today. Today, you do the show, then you rehearse it, then you do the show, then you rehearse it, then you do the show, then you rehearse it, then you cut it, then you rehearse it, then you cut it, and you recut it, then you rebat, then you reshoot, and you come back and you read. This is for a half-hour show. It takes I don't know how many weeks to put it on. But until they start to write it, until they get the rewrites and the rewrites and another rewrite and another rewrite. To do a show on television today takes you 4 or 5 weeks, and to shoot it takes you maybe a whole day, 12 hours, maybe more, maybe 2 days, whatever. Or if you're doing a dramatic show, it'll take you a whole week. We did an hour-and-a-half show every week, not for 20 weeks or 22 weeks, for 39 weeks. That means you did an hour-and-a-half show every week, 39 weeks, every year. And there were no teleprompters, as you say, and there were no cue cards either. Because when you did something, we did it like a Broadway show. And really, nobody knows what live is today. They really have no conception, because the news is on tape. Yeah. I mean, everything is on tape,
Well, you remember the Fox show, and I watched so little television. They made this tremendous deal about how it was going to be done live in front of the studio audience, as if they were suddenly discovering that concept.
Well, they're constantly rediscovering and then rediscovering, and they keep discovering the same thing all the time. But this was live, and the audience was different then. They didn't sit back on like a couch potato and look at it, because they realized this was live, and anything could go wrong. A piece of scenery could go wrong, a prop didn't work, a sound effect didn't come in on time, somebody forgot their lines, you went to open the door wouldn't open, it wouldn't close. So, but you had to be on your feet all the time. You had to think. Because you can't stop and say, all right, come on, let's take it again. There was none of that. It was one take. I remember there's some writers I was lecturing some writers, and these were guys who were working on shows, and they said, "Mr. Caesar, we know that the show was an hour and a half, and we know that it was live. But tell us one thing: how long did it take you to shoot the hour and a half?" So they really don't understand what live is. Live is like a Broadway show. You come out, you do it once. That's it. You perform it once for the audience, and that's only. Well, how did you get the laughs? I said, there was an audience there. Yeah, but supposing something didn't go. I said, so you went a little faster. And they couldn't comprehend of doing an hour and a half show live. And now, not only that, it wasn't a talk show where you sat down and talked. This was sketches, production numbers involving hundreds of people. Hundreds of people. I'm not talking 20, 30 people. I'm talking hundreds. With the grips and with the musicians, with the television cable men, because the cables had to be moved. I mean, we had 5 cameras; they had to be moved. They had cable men had to move the cables. They had certain marks. This mark had to be done. It was all done, and we started to write this show on Monday. The show was on Saturday night, 9 o'clock. We started writing on Monday. The show, the whole hour and a half, had to be written by Wednesday night. The entire hour and a half had to be written by Wednesday night, because that's when we turned it over with the Mimeo. In those days, we had Mimeo. Then we had to have sets made, then we had the costumes made, we had to have everything. As I said, sound effects had to be gotten, props had to be made. Everything had to be done in 2 days, because Wednesday you had Thursday and Friday. Saturday was the show. So in 2 days, nobody slept, because the men had to get the orchestrators had to start making orchestrations. All the props had to be made. All the sound effects had to be looked for and gotten. All this had to be gotten and done with. And this is just the comedy. Then there was the production numbers with costumes and sets and up and down, and orchestrations and choreography. This was a Broadway show done every week. It was an hour and a half, which is the first act of a Broadway show. And this is what we did. When we tried to emulate a Broadway show, because we had nothing to look up to or what to emulate. We didn't, in our first show, we didn't know where to put the microphones. We would say, well, put them in the footlights. Well, we put them over here. Well, let's do it like they do it in the movies. Let's have a boom. It was literally like that, because we had no idea where to put the microphones. Because this was a Broadway review. Where do you put the microphones? Today they have them on everybody. But we didn't have wireless microphones in those days. So it was a little like doing television in King Arthur's court. But the quality of what was done and what was achieved was stupendous. I mean, I was so lucky to get writers like Neil Simon, Mel Brooks, Larry Gelbart, Woody Allen. All these people were, they're giants today. And we all sat in one room. And there was a man called Mike Stewart who wrote Bye Bye Birdie and 42nd Street and a couple other things. So the caliber of writing and the caliber of performance, what Carl and Imogene and Howard Morris, I mean, it was like you would say in the Renaissance, there's a gathering, of artists, and they create a new style, like the Impressionists, which gathered in Paris at the time, and they all was a mecca. Paris was a mecca for Impressionism, and all the great artists came, and it was a joy. It was a tremendous amount of work. It was, I call it, it's a tortured treasure, because you went through torture some weeks, but it was a treasure when you got the response from the audience, and you knew how you were doing. No critic had to come and tell you.
And there you have it, another edited episode of one of the American Montage programs prepared for the UPI Radio Network back in the 1980s and 90s. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going with me this week. And check YouTube for more American Montage programs.